Welcome to the NFLTalkZone Podcast, Episode 4. I'm your host, Nicolas, joined by my co-host, Graham. Today, we're basically just going to continue something we did last week's episode. We did the projected top 5 guys at each position on the offensive side of the football. Today, we're doing the defensive side of the football, and we're also throwing in kicker for those of you interested.
Go,
but
Graham.
Before we get to... Well, I'm just going to reiterate what I kind of already said last week, that this is a projecting how they're going to look on the field this year by the eye test and numbers wise, just how we think they'll play this year. And before we get into that though, we got a little bit to talk about, not much though. We're just going to talk about the Steelers quarterback battle today. So over the last week or so after preseason week 1, with Kenny Pickett throwing 13 for 15 for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a game-winning touchdown in the final 10 seconds of the game for the Steelers preseason versus, I believe, the Seahawks past weekend. That has now opened up some questions whether Kenny Pickett should be the day 1 starter, and will he be the day 1 starter? Because previously he was quarterback 3 on the depth chart behind Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. But now there's trade talks that Mason Rudolph is expected to be traded to the Lions by the end of the week, I think it was.
Yep.
And with Pickett's performance, although Trubisky, to his credit, did throw an opening drive touchdown, take the Steelers right down the field, he was pulled out of the game. And then Pickett, when he came in the whole second half, I believe he played the whole second half. He played good. I said his stats, and
he was with the third.
competition.
He was with the third string practice squad players as well.
I think it's a competition. I think that it's still not a lock that Trubisky's the starter week 1. I personally think that Kenny Pickett is the better quarterback than Trubisky, and I do think both of them are kind of underrated going into the season. I'm a little bit higher on Trubisky than some, and Pickett I really liked out of the draft. So it's going to be interesting who starts. I'm still sticking with the prediction that Trubisky's going to start week 1, but I think that Pickett could be taken over by week 6-8 range. What do you think about this whole Steelers quarterback battle, Graham?
I kind of gonna go agree with what you said. I'm actually very high on Trubisky. I've always thought Trubisky is an above average quarterback. I think he deserves to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I just think he was treated unfairly by your good old friend Matt Nagy. But anyways, I like what the Steelers are doing at quarterback right now. He's gonna fit in well with being a good number 2 to Jared Goff. They kind of need a backup quarterback. They literally have a nobody there at quarterback 2, giving him that's pretty good. The quarterback battle really though between Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky. I think Trubisky's going to start week 1, and then as we were talking about earlier, I think Kenny Pickett will take over around week 7. I like Trubisky. I just think he just joined an awkward situation where it wasn't going to work out in his favor, and unfortunately, he's going to lose his starting job by halfway through the year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Trubisky, but I was going to add on something. Oh, speaking of Matt Nagy, it was his homecoming this past week, and he returned to Chicago as a member of the Chiefs.
Can we just talk about how terrible Soldier Field looked? I've never seen
you saw the pictures?
Worse football field ever. It literally looked like it was a sand pit.
But just look at it and then look at what they played at in the 1950s, and it looks like some premium high technology field. So there's that, but
a football field from 2022 to 1950.
Okay, but anyway.
Yeah.
That's all we're going to talk about for the Steelers quarterback battle today. Now we're moving on to what this episode is about, mainly the projected player rankings for the defensive side of the ball, top 5 at each position. If you didn't check out last week's offensive rankings, go check that out, but here's the defense. So starting off with the consensus number 1, Aaron Donald. Do we need to talk about Aaron Donald?
Aaron Donald is the best defensive player. He's going to be the best defensive player of all time. If you watch the Bullcast, I said he will solidify himself as the best defensive player of all time by the end of this year. That's why he's my number 1. He's just really good at football. What type of juices he be drinking? But we need to all get some of those juices.
Okay, not much to add to Aaron Donald. We all know he's very good.
Yeah.
Just the fact that consistently for like 7 years straight now, he's been an all-pro player and had a case to be the best player in football. That's just
99 overall in
impressive.
Madden for 6 years in a row. It's crazy.
Like, the only thing I can even remember close to this, I've been only watching football for 10 years, is J.J. Watt, but that was only
J.J.
like
Watt.
4 year stretch maybe. And then he got injured, and then
5
he came
years.
back, had like a
Yep.
good season, and then
Got
hasn't
hurt
really been
again.
the same. But
Yeah.
Aaron Donald's stretch is just outstanding.
Yeah.
I guess we could say Tom Brady, but I don't think it's been as good as he's. Okay, I'm not going to diss Tom Brady, but Aaron Donald, just the domination, play to play for
Yep.
8 year stretch is unmatched. Being the best
Yep.
player at your position for 8 years is amazing. But I'm going to go with my number 2 before we talk about your number 2, which is my number 3. But my number 2 didn't make your list, and I'm very confused as to why Jeffrey Simmons is not on your list. He was very good last year. Oh, it's dude. I was asking you why he wasn't on your list. I'll talk more about him after you say why he's not on
Oh,
your
my
list.
bad. My bad. Do you want me to go talk why he's not on the list?
Yeah, why is he not on the list?
So Jeffrey Simmons for me, he was a flip of a coin between him and Jonathan Allen and Vita Vea. I personally chose Vita Vea and Jonathan Allen over him because I preferred those two guys as run stopping more than Jeffrey Simmons. I think Vita Vea is the best run stuffing defensive lineman in football, and Jonathan Allen is just a dog. You watch Jonathan Allen's film, he just dogs on him. I love Jonathan Allen. I think this year he's gonna have a great year. We can talk about more about him in a second, but on the list, he's just not as good at run defense as those other two guys.
Yeah, I can understand that, but just from a pass rushing standpoint, he was 5th in quarterback pressures last year, and he had 14 sacks, which was second behind Aaron Donald, if you're counting the postseason for defensive linemen, if you're counting the postseason sacks into a defensive lineman. So just from a pass rushing standpoint, I really like him a lot. And the Tennessee Titans defense, I think, outperformed a lot of people's expectations last year. And he really helps guys around him like Harold Landry have a lot of sacks last year. And I just think that Jeffrey Simmons' pure ability is amazing, and I think he's only growing as a player. Would I say Jeffrey Simmons is better than Chris Jones right now? Probably. Well, I wouldn't say he's better than Chris Jones right now. Cameron Haywood, it's a debate. But Jeffrey Simmons is probably having 4 right now. But for this season, I expect him to continue to grow off the last few seasons he's had. And I think he's going to solidify himself in that conversation for the second best interior defensive lineman. Him and Chris Jones are really neck to neck for me. Yeah. I'm going to go with Jeffrey Simmons at number 2. So we can move on to Chris Jones. Chris Jones, I feel like he's similar in a sense to Simmons, where his pass rushing really stands out. But I do think Simmons is a little bit better of a run defender than Chris Jones, because that has been something that Chris Jones has gotten kind of knocked on a little bit for during his career. But the pass rushing standpoint from Chris Jones is amazing, and you just see the difference he makes when he's on the field for the Chiefs versus when he's not on the field. So I like Chris Jones a lot. I got him at 3. Do you have anything to add to Chris Jones? You got him at number 2.
I like Chris Jones. I also put him at 2, not only he plays on the field, but just the veteran leadership he's going to bring to the Chiefs this year. Defense is very young now. It got really young. And I think him presence right there and being like that centerpiece is going to cause a lot of it to him, and it's going to cause the younger counterparts that he has on his defense to show out a little bit. It's like you said, his pass rushing ability is really good. Probably second in the league to Aaron Donald. Pretty lazy with the run defense, I won't lie. We both not. He's not physically enough as an interior lineman, I guess. The penetration between the big guards and the big center, but overall, he's the second best defensive interior lineman, and I don't think there's really a debate.
Okay, so we disagree on that, but we do agree with 3 of the top 4. You have at number 3 Cameron Haywood. I have Cameron Haywood at number 4. So I feel like we agree on kind of top guys at this position more than some of the other positions that we covered last week on the offensive side of the ball. But Cameron Haywood, just been a very good player for really the last 6-7 years or so. But really, the thing that stands out with Cameron Hayward to me is his all-around ability as not only a pass rusher and a run defender, but I don't know how much you can really factor this in, but not really counting J.J. Watt, I think Cameron Hayward is the best at batting down passes from the interior defensive line position, and his numbers do back that up. But Cameron Hayward, just the completeness to his game, the consistency year to year, I think is going to grant him another top 5 spot at this position this season.
So I'm at number 3, and pretty much the only reasons why I put him in front of Vita Vea and Jonathan Allen is because of his pass deflections. Deflection rate is crazy. It was like, what, 20 something?
He had I was going to say he had 8 batted passes last year.
Yeah, and it was like 20 pressured passes or something crazy like that where he nearly deflected them. It was crazy. He's kind of like the other two that I mentioned earlier. He's just a dog, man. Like, he's really good at pass rushing. He's really good at run stuffing. In a way, he reminds me of a lesser man's Aaron Donald. He's just not Aaron Donald, but he is really, really good at what he does. And there's not really much to say about the 3 spot.
So for reference, Cameron Hayward 8 batted passes from the interior defensive line position last year. Second was tied between Jeffrey Simmons and Chris Jones with 5 apiece, so a whole 3 gap. And then a couple guys after that, 4 guys had 4, and then after that, 3 and under. So he's way ahead of everyone in that statistic, which is impressive. It just adds another element to his run stopping ability, which I think is the best at the position. You could argue, who'd you say was Vita Vea? But I think Cameron Hayward slightly out edges Vita Vea, but it's close.
Yeah.
But add his pass rushing ability, just the completeness, gets Cameron Hayward high on the list. So we have some other spots to cover here. We have your 4 and 5. Let's do your 4. Let's talk about Vita Vea, a guy who I think I'd have probably in the top 8. 4 is maybe a little high for me, but I really do like Vita Vea, and I can see why you have him at number 4. So talk about Vita Vea.
So I put Vita Vea at number 4 because I feel like it's only fair to put a pure run-stuffing interior alignment into the top 5. We can both agree Vita Vea is huge. He is a big man. His main purpose on the field is to be that nose guard, and he is supposed to disrupt the run game. His pass rushing ability isn't necessarily bad either. He needs to work on keeping all 3 downs of the game before he gets exhausted. But other than that, Vita Vea, he's the best run defender in football. It's not really close. Kind of close with Hayward and Donald, but I just think he's just so powerful. Watching him play, it's kind of funny because he has no sleeves, no gloves. He is just a man just trying to destroy people, and it's hilarious. But I love Vita Vea somewhere, so I put him at 4.
With Vita Vea, I think he's one of those players that when you watch him, he's better than his stats suggest, or like just his basic stats, because he's one of those guys who just attracts attention from the opposing interior offensive line.
And he disrupts a lot.
Yeah, that really stands out with Vita Vea, and like you said, his run stopping ability is very good, but his pass rushing ability I feel is a little bit underrated. Looking at just his, he did have 42 pressures last year. It was 15th, but going back to 2019, he was injured in 2020 for the most part. Going back to 2019, he was 6th in quarterback pressures with 57. So that's impressive.
Yep.
Add in his run stopping ability and just pure presence on that Bucs defensive line. I wouldn't have him quite this high, but I can definitely understand having Vita Vea top 5.
Yep.
So we have 2 different people at number 5. I was between the guy you have and Buckner. I originally had Jonathan Allen, but I changed mine to Buckner, and then you sent me yours, and I saw you had Jonathan Allen, so I found that interesting. But Buckner, what kind of made me put Buckner over Jonathan Allen, because we know the talent Jonathan Allen has around him, and that kind of can maybe help his stats a little bit. But Buckner, the addition, me remembering that they added Yannick Ngakoue, is kind of what
Yes.
made me put Buckner over Allen, because I think that'll help Buckner out. And I think Buckner's overall talent is slightly better than Allen, just from his consistency so far. But Allen is young, and he's been good really the last couple of years, but specifically last season. But I have Buckner slightly over him, but I wouldn't really disagree too much if you have Allen at 5.
Yeah, I put Jonathan Allen at number 5 for the same reason you put DeForest Buckner, adding Ngakoue. I put Jonathan Allen at 5 because I think Chase Young is going to come back and have a. I don't know if he'll have a top 5 year for edge rushers, but he definitely will have a really good year, and I think that's going to alleviate to make him have more one-on-one situation. I think this year he's actually going to be able to like tap that full potential that he has and possibly go for an all-pro spot this year.
Yeah, so I do like Jonathan Allen, as I mentioned. But, yeah, with Buckner, just we saw him switch schemes from the Niners to the Colts, and he's still the best at this position in football when he switched teams, so that's impressive. And he did get traded for the first-round pick, so the Niners probably do wish they kept him.
Yep.
But move on to the next position. This one, I don't know if we have anything too controversial. I mean, maybe I do, depending on how you feel about some of these guys. But I guess we might have something controversial on both of ours. Maybe yours. But
yeah, there's one that's out for me.
We got ours kind of all over the place on this one.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start. Let's actually do something different here. Let's both explain why we have TJ Watt in the same place at number 2 and why the reigning defensive player of the year is not number 1. I'm just gonna say the way I actually feel about TJ Watt. He's been the best edge rusher in football the last two to 3 seasons, really. Only reason I don't have him at number 1, this is gonna sound stupid, because it kind of would be boring to have him the defensive player of the year at number 1 again for like 4 years straight. Could he be the next Aaron Donald of the edge rusher position? Potentially, but just his consistency being the top guy from year to year. But yeah, I just think Nick Bosa with that defensive line healthy is going to have a monster year. So we'll get into Nick Bosa, but talk about TJ Watt a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of put TJ Watt because at number 2, he is the best edge rusher in football. And kind of like you, I don't want to be boring. I think he's consistently the best, but I think overall talent-wise he's crazy good at edge rusher. He's got the moves, he's got the power, he's got the speed, he's got just about everything you want as an edge rusher. We're gonna say, oh, what about Micah Parsons? He's a new great edge. Michael Parsons is he is a hybrid, so he can technically goes in as a linebacker. So I'm gonna put Miles Garrett at 1, and I put TJ Watt at 2. TJ Watt is it's boring to put him at 1. I agree.
But we can cover Myles Garrett. So the way I look at my list is I think all 5 of my guys can win Defensive Player of the Year this year, and I wouldn't be surprised. I feel about the way I feel about these 5 guys. 3 of your 5, I feel, wouldn't be surprised. Your 4, I would maybe a little surprised if you won Defensive Player of the Year, but it wouldn't be shocking. Number 5, I'd be completely shocked if he won Defensive Player of the Year. But we can talk about Myles Garrett. So I have him at 4. You have him at 1. Just quickly, why I have him at 4. Myles Garrett can easily be the best edge rusher in football. These guys are all close. I flipped them around a couple times. This is what I came out with. Maybe because I think the 3 guys above Myles Garrett have more help on the defensive line than him. That can really help him out and maybe take some of the attention off them and help boost the stats to get them into these spots at the end of the year. But other than that, I can't really say anything negative about Myles Garrett. He has the best bull rush in football, one of the most strongest players in football, and he just consistently produces at an all-pro level year to year. And one of these years, he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I just don't think it's going to be this year. And especially with all that's going on with the Browns, could that have influenced it? Maybe. But you can talk about Myles Garrett at 1. With Graham's beloved Cleveland Browns.
Oh, Lord. Browns are always going to Brown, right? But Myles Garrett, like I said earlier, I love Myles Garrett. He's got all the moves that you want as an edge rusher. He's got the power. He's got the finesse. He's got the speed, as I said earlier, blah, blah, blah. I just have him at 1 because I think this is finally the year he's he's going to win it. I think TJ Watt and him are going to fight for it hard. And then you can include the Bosa brothers down there at 3 and 4. I think they'll also give themselves like a name into the hat. Once we talk about like Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa, I want to talk about them together because they both, for me personally, do you mind if we just move on to yeah, can we just move on to Nick and Joey?
I want to just close one more thing on Miles Garrett. So it's funny. We kind of the exact opposite. We both admit, okay, any year now he's going to win it. And I will say, over the last 2 to 3 years, you can throw Khalil Mack in there for me. But I think Miles Garrett and TJ Watt have consistently been the 2 to 3 best guys at this position.
Yep.
I think Khalil Mack's been there too. Shaq Barrett's had his moments. He didn't make this list for me, though. But,
Yep.
But we can move on to Nick Bosa. Quick thing, Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa, they're just so similar in my opinion. It's funny that I have one at 1 and the other one, Joey Bosa and Max Crosby, I was close back and forth on for my 5th spot. That was a tough one. I also had another guy I was thinking of for that spot too. We can talk about it once we finish the list. But Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa are so close that it feels like they should be neck and neck. But I've just overall like Nick Bosa's ability more. He does play on a better defense, so maybe that helps him. But they're just both similar, both very technically sound. You can tell they've been coached up really well throughout their football lives. And both strong guys, not the quickest guys, but both strong guys with great technique and are just pure pass rushers who can also stop the run. I do think I like Nick Bosa's playmaking ability as far as taking the football away, although I do believe Joey Bosa improved at that last year. But overall, they're close. I prefer Nick by maybe more than you do between Nick and Joey, but we can talk about Nick and Joey from your standpoint.
So I'm gonna quickly just say I think Bosa brother, but they are both they're just really good at football. Like I like his power moves more than I like Joey Bosa's power moves. I think Nick's a little bit more stronger and the Joey. But I'm gonna read off a couple like physical attributes about these two guys. Nick Bosa is 24 years old. He is 267 pounds. He's 6'4". Is 27, 276, and 6'5". If you shrink Joey Bosa by 1 inch as well, and you decrease his weight by around that same percentage, I will put money that him and Nick would almost be the exact same attribute. I'm not saying that just because they're brothers. I'm saying that because that's how they play. They play like the same, same way.
They wear the same number.
They play the
same way.
They play the
they're
same
brothers
position.
And they're both elite.
Yes. And I think Joey Bosa is kind of underrated in a sense because people don't really talk about him anymore. Don't remember before he got hurt years ago, he was probably going to be the best defensive rusher in football. And now people have somewhat kind
You've always been very high on Joey Bosa.
Yes.
I always remember you being very high on Joey Bosa, but the Bosas are like so much more similar than the Watts. Even though the Watts are similar, they're just a little bit more different than the Bosas.
Yeah.
The Bosas are literally identical.
Yeah, but
like, if you switched them in uniforms, I couldn't tell. Like, oh wait, why is Joey in the Niners uniform? I would think it's Nick.
Exactly, and
it's like that crazy.
I'm super excited to see how Joey plays this year. I think he's gonna have a great year. But you want to talk about your number 3?
Yeah, was this one surprising?
Yes, very surprising.
Okay, I didn't think this was as surprising as your number 5, but Rashawn Gary, he's sneakily had a really an all-pro caliber season last year. Definitely a Pro Bowl caliber season. Which, did he make the Pro Bowl? I'm gonna check that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
He did not make the Pro Bowl. That was shocking. But anyway,
no.
Just going over his stats real quick. Pulling them up. He had 81 total pressures last year, 10 sacks. So the sack number's not like really popping crazy, but 10 sacks is still good. 81 total pressures, as I mentioned. An 89.3 PFF grade, which was very high. That included an 88.9 pass rush PFF grade, which is very high. And I'm going to check this real quick, but his pass rush was extremely high. It was at number... I'm trying to find it. Pass rush win rate was number 2 behind Max Crosby with a 26.0 win rate, which is very impressive. So overall, his advanced numbers showed that top 5 caliber, really, and I believe I had him at 5 for last year at the end of the year.
Yep.
But with the guys he has around him, now that they still have Kenny Clark, Dean Lowry, they added Devontae Wyatt, who's the other edge rusher, Preston Smith.
Though.
But Zadarius Smith only played 1 game last year.
Yeah.
And they had Preston Smith, so it's basically the same as last year, adding Devontae Wyatt. And the guy's only improving. Gailey, he was one of those really similar to Trayvon Walker and is just very athletic coming out of college, very athletic with attributes. But he was a guy who, like Trayvon Walker, is a guy who maybe is going to take some time to develop. And Gailey, it was his 3rd year last year. After not doing much in his first 2 seasons, his last year he finally put it all together and put up a very good statistical season. And I think he's going to do that again. And I think he's the best. I'm not into betting, but if you were to bet, I think he would be the best bet for your money at Defensive Player of the Year. He's I believe not even in the top 15, which is surprising to me, considering the Packers are probably going to have a top 5 defense this year, and he's going to be the best player, him or Alexander, on that defense. But I'm really impressed with Gailey. So how far would he be outside your top 5? And did you know any of those numbers I just told you? That he was second in pass rush?
I had no idea about the numbers.
Everything.
Very high on the numbers. But I had him probably in the 9 to 10 range. I don't really remember off the top of my head. I'm high on him though. I think right now for me are the most confusing team for me to rank players on, because the defense is really good. Don't get me wrong. Offense for them this year is a giant question mark, and I'm a believer. And if the offense struggles, the defense will struggle as well. We saw that with the Saints last year, where the Saints defense is really, really good. It's elite, probably the best defense in football, but they're all so bad that the defense was starting to struggle. So yeah, I don't know about him. He's good. I love Rashawn. I like watching him play last year. He's very fun. And yeah, when I knew that he didn't make the Pro Bowl, and I was a little surprised by that. But I don't know about him ranked a 3 above Myles Garrett.
Something about Packers edge rushers not making the Pro Bowl, because I remember 2019 when Zadarius Smith had his very good statistical season. I remember him having the little shirt under his jersey that he pulled after he got sacked in the playoffs and said snubbed or whatever.
Yep.
But interesting for the Packers. But I think Gary's going to make the Pro Bowl, no doubt, this year. I'd be shocked if he didn't.
Yep.
I actually did have him at 2 at first, but then I was like, TJ Watt, as good as he's been, he won Defensive Player of the Year last year. Putting TJ Watt at 3 would have been too disrespectful to TJ Watt, because I still think, not just based off last year, but I still think he's going to be a very good player this year, so it's hard to move him down farther than 2. But moving on to number 4, I believe, because we already covered 2 or 3. We already kind of talked about Joey Bosa, so we already talked about Myles Garrett too. So we'll just go to our 5. Is that fine with you?
Yep, that works for me. I'll start us off with Cam Jordan. So the reason why I put Cam Jordan, let's start off with the first one. I like Cam Jordan,
but I was shocked that you had him at 5.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a homer. I have to put a Saints player somewhere on the defensive list. I love watching him play for how many years now? Like 6-7 years. He's just so funny, man. He's not the best pass rushing.
Wait. Can we pause? When the first thing you talk about for the player being at 5 is he's funny and he's not the best pass rusher, I think he shouldn't be on your top 5. But
he is not the best pass rusher out of these 5. He's probably the 5th best pass rusher. And I think he's the 5th best pass rusher in football, maybe 6th.
But he's an elite run defender.
Yes. His run defense is the best run defense out of any edge rusher in football. And I would probably say, if you go back to the interior lineman, I would almost put him above Jonathan Allen in interior run defense.
You mean
or
Vita
just
Vea?
Run defense? No. Jonathan Allen.
Oh.
I don't think he's better than Vita Vea. I think Vita Vea is the best in football. But anyways, Cameron Jordan, he's also a very big pressure guy. I don't know if the stats will show it, but Cameron Jordan just causes a ruckus, especially when he plays Matt Ryan. You know what? Cam Jordan has 23 Ryan, and before sadly Matt Ryan left for the Indianapolis Colts. His 20 is the most sacks any player has ever had against one specific quarterback, all time. he loves just to hit Matt Ryan. And that stat is crazy. Yes, you play him twice, but the fact that you can sack a quarterback 23 times is so. Cameron Jordan, not the best pass rusher. I think he's the best run defending defensive lineman or edge rusher in football. I put him at 5. Also, much to say. So yeah,
I like Cam Jordan as a player, but I'd have him just outside the top 10. There's still a lot of guys that
whoa,
at this position. I'll name them off after we talk about my number 5. But Cam Jordan, fairly good run defender. I think his pass rushing is maybe you feel it's also a little maybe underrated. But I feel last year he did decline until that elite game stretch towards the end of the season. He really picked it up. But never been the guy to force a ton of fumbles. But if he can stop the run consistently and pass rush at
it doesn't matter.
Still pretty high level, it doesn't really matter. But
I like
talk
your
about
5.
my number 5. Max Crosby. I think he was.
Crosby.
I think he should have been really in the defensive conversation, player of the year last year. I had him at number 2 behind T.J. Watt last year, just because he literally just dominated everyone as far as pressure in the quarterback. 101 pressures in the regular season last year, which Rashawn Gary was 2 with 81. That was 20 more than the second.
Crazy.
Plus he was number 1. I believe I said Rashawn Gary was number 2 in pass rush win rate behind Max Crosby, who was number 1 in that. So that's impressive. Just from a pass rushing standpoint, the play-to-play effort that you see Max Crosby give, play-to-play, just watching him, this guy's motor is insane. Definitely a pass rusher you want to have on your team. And it's weird because his first couple of years, he was getting a bunch of sacks that maybe didn't really show how good he was in those years. But I feel like last year he just broke out all around and was just a beast all around. And I could see him being higher than he is right now. I could flip him in 304, maybe even higher than that. These 5 guys, I think, are all very good candidates for Defensive Player of the Year. So I do like Max Crosby a lot. I'm going to have him at 5.
Yeah, I love Max Crosby. He's really fun to watch, and now this year he's going to have Chandler Jones on the other side, which I think is a significant upgrade for oh my god, I can't say his name. To say his name. You can say it for me. You're better than me at saying his name. I'm just not going to say it.
Who?
Ngakwe. I can't say it.
Oh, Yannick Ngakoue?
Yeah, I can't say his name, but Chandler Jones is a significant upgrade. I think they're going to have a really good year this year. I love Max Crosby. He is my number 6. And then Gary would be my number 7, I would assume.
Off topic, but I wouldn't say it's a significant upgrade. It's an upgrade, but I think Yannick Ngakoue is an underrated player. I think he's a top 20-ish at this position, and Chandler Jones is a top 15-ish at this point in his career. So I don't think it's that big of an upgrade, more of a name upgrade, but it's still an upgrade. But anyway, we can talk about guys that just missed. I was very close with Bosa, Joey Bosa, as I said. Danielle Hunter, a guy strongly considered.
Ooh, yeah.
Back in 2019, when he was healthy, he was top 5, no doubt, in my opinion.
Crazy. Yeah.
But other guys, there's still Zadarius Smith. There's always Khalil Mack, who could get back into that top 5 with the Chargers now.
Yep.
And Trey Hendrickson is another guy who has a big motor. Really stands out, being the best pass rusher on that Bengals Super Bowl team last year. Von Miller, I think if he can play a whole season, is still in this conversation. I think I'm higher than Von Miller on you from when you were talking about him a couple pods ago. I like Von Miller a lot. I think his completeness as a pass rusher and a run defender, I think he's up there with Cam Jordan for the best run defender at this position.
Yes. I would even throw
big
Trey
plays.
Henderson in there as well.
Von Miller makes big plays in big games. Shaquille Bailey is a guy who I thought was top 5 a couple years ago, but I don't think he's been top 5 last year or so. But he could always bounce back.
I agree.
Then other than that, there's really like Chase Young, who could break out potentially. This would kind of be a big breakout. But other than that, I think that's about it. Unless someone like Brian Williams comes out and has that big breakout season that he could have, but I think that would be a stretch. But who knows? But ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah. You ready to move on to linebackers?
We spend a lot of time on edge rushers, so we can try to
Yeah.
Quick.
I'll start us. So, Nick, we have different number ones, but I want to
Yeah,
go
hold
ahead on
on.
my number one, Fred
So,
Warner.
wait, can I say something before? Sorry, I'm interrupting you. So, see on the
Yeah, go
graphic
ahead,
who's
go
in the
ahead.
middle? See who's on the graphic? The player?
Yeah.
So, I had Micah Parsons there because I'm like, okay, Micah Parsons can be player. Then you sent me your list, and the way I did it was combine who was our top guy combined, and I had 1 or 2, you had him 1. But I had Parsons 1 and you had him 3, so it's a spot lower. So I had to change it from Parsons to Fred Warner. And I was like, ugh. Parsons is the best linebacker. But anyway, I could definitely see Fred Warner. But anyway, talk about Fred Warner and
Yeah.
then I'll talk about him.
I think Fred Warner is the best ball because what can he not do? He reminds me so much of he's a more athletic version of Luke Kuechly. He's very smart with the game of football. He is the definition of the quarterback of defense. He's uber athletic. He's got decent hands for a linebacker, and his run defense and his run stuffing is really, really good. He hits through the gaps really well. I also think he's one of the best blitzing linebacker in football. I'd probably put him at 3 behind the guys that I have at 2 and 3 with Demario Davis and Micah Parsons. Fred
And
Warner
Devin
really
White.
and yeah, Devin White too. Devin White to me, the reason why he didn't make the top 5 is only because I think he's going to regress this year. But
Well, I don't
anyways,
think Devin White. I was talking about blitzing. I don't think Wise he's been top 5. He's been really good athletic blitzing linebacker who quite
yeah.
hasn't
Oh
been
yeah.
as good, consistent play-to-play coverage
Yeah.
linebacker to be a top 5.
Yeah. But to say about Fred Warner, I just think he's just the best overall.
Yeah, Fred Warner, he's one of those linebackers. Just watching him play-to-play basis, you see how much he does with that defense. We all know how good he is in coverage. But I got him at number 2 because just the guy number 1 I think is just an absolute freak. Micah Parsons, my number 1 linebacker. I recently changed my defensive player of the year pick from Nick Bosa to Micah Parsons. I'm just very high on Micah Parsons. Going back and watching him last year, Cowboys, please make Micah Parsons not an every down pass rusher, but almost every down pass rusher, because he just has those elite pass rushing traits, ability to get off the line quick, and really win with his speed, and he has good hands too, and he's strong. I want to see Micah Parsons as a pass rusher. Excuse me, just because of. You grab some water. You talk about Parsons, and I'll continue.
So for me, Micah Parsons, I put him at 3, and that can be very low for a lot of people. I put him at 3 only because you said his pass rushing skills are crazy. He's just so quick, and he's pretty powerful too as well. But I put him at 3 because I think Fred Warner is a significantly better pass linebacker than Micah Parsons is. I'm not saying Micah Parsons is bad. I just don't think he's as good as Fred Warner. And the reason why I put Micah Parsons under Demario Davis is because I think I'm also a very big person in leadership, and I think that makes a person better or worse. Demario Davis's natural leadership with the Saints is absolutely crazy. Not to run stuffing linebacker in football and linebacker in football. But Micah Parsons, he's young, he's super rawly athletic. Like he is crazy athletic. He's an athlete. I almost think he could be a safety if he just lost a couple pounds, which is crazy for people to think. See him as like a down safety, but that's just me. But I love him at the edge rushing position. I think by the end of the year, we'll be talking about him being an edge rusher more than him being a linebacker.
But Parsons, I do think his stand-up linebacker ability, it is maybe a little underrated. If he was just a stand-up linebacker, not a pass rusher, he would probably still be in the top 5 talk.
Yes. I think I would have him at 5.
He probably just wouldn't be like number 1 as I have him. But
yes,
Mike Parsons is just a freak athlete. I think his pass rush ability just really separates him. Even if he isn't the most polished coverage player like a Fred Warner, still really good. He's only improving in that aspect. Was a defensive player of the year candidate as a rookie. But moving on to kind of talked about Warner, talked about Parsons. Well, my number 3 that didn't make your list, I have Alec Kendricks. Alec Kendricks. Well, before we get to Kendricks, I noticed we don't have many disagreements on this list.
I don't know.
But anyway,
yeah.
Alec Kendricks.
Why Eric Kendricks at 3?
That seems high for you?
Yeah, a little bit.
But anyway, Kendricks, Okay, what stands out with Kendricks is his coverage ability. I think he's one of the best coverage linebackers in football. He did have a slight down year last year, but I think with the talent they added on that defense, he's only going to bounce back and have a top tier linebacker year. Just very good coverage, and he can stop the run at a high level too. He's kind of just a do-it-all guy that I really like, and I think has been underrated throughout his career. And I think he's going to have a bounce-back season and be top 3 this year.
Yeah, I like Eric Kendricks. I think he's too far out of himself, out of his prime and things like that. He's just, yeah. I don't know. Eric Kendricks, he's just, I think coming off of that injury, I think he's going to regress. But curious on why you don't have my number 2 on your list at all.
Oh, did I skip over to Mario Davis?
We skipped over to Mario Davis.
That was my bad.
And I am very upset. Not only do you not have him on the list, you don't even talk about him. He is the most underrated player in football. The fact no one talks about how good he is. I'm about to go now and read off some of his stats.
Gotta have PFF subscription.
You have that. Go read off some of his stats. Like, go look at his stats. You don't even have to read them all. Oh my gosh, they're crazy. He's so underrated, man.
Last season, I'm gonna check what I had. Demario Davis last season, I had him linebacker 5.
No, he should have been first All-Pro the past 2 years. That's just me. That sounds crazy, I know, but his run defense as a linebacker is mesmerizing to watch. He knows before the play even happens, which is absolutely bonkers. His rushing, his weird blitz at a linebacker, the way he disguises his blitz is the best in football. Yes, he's getting up there in age. He's going to start regressing soon. I don't think this year is going to be that year, but there is one guy that I'm super excited about that people are going to get to know about this year, and I almost put him on the list because I think he's going to be doing so good, and he's also on the Saints. And that man is Pete Werner. Pete Werner is a man. And I think that he is going to learn from Demario Davis this year. Demario Davis, this is going to be his like father year where he's going to develop Pete Werner, and he's going to finally like pass the torch on to Pete Werner. And by the time of next year's season end, Pete our number 1 guy, and Demario Davis will be our number 2. But why do you not have him at number 2?
Why not at number 2 and not on the list?
Why not even on
the? Well, I don't have him on the list. Well, I do think, as I said, I think he's about 4 or 5 right now. Because what stands out is his ability to stop the run as well as blitz. I don't think he's the quickest linebacker as far as if you asked him to do what the Niners asked Fred Warner to do, wouldn't be Fred Warner.
Yeah.
So I think he really fits in that system well. But with Demario Davis, hasn't been a guy to intercept the ball. A lot of really forced fumbles. Let me just double check that.
No, he's good at forcing fumbles. That's.
He hasn't forced a fumble since 2018.
Really?
And he has He has 2 interceptions in his career. Only one.
Yeah, he's not an intercept. He's definitely a box linebacker. But
anyway, with Demario Davis, I just think there's other guys that are really better than Davis.
He's better. Yeah, I get that. I just think he's just had years where he racks up tackles. Was he the leading tackler this year as a linebacker, or was he one of the top 3? Yeah, was he one of the top 3?
I think Jordan Brooks was the leading linebacker tackler, and then the Falcons now Jaguars guy Sadie.
Oh yeah, Olukon. I think he was the league leader last year, but Demario Davis a couple of years ago was the league leader. I mean, he just racks up tackles. It's crazy, but we could probably move on. I would say.
You can start us off with number 4.
Yeah. If you want, I could talk about 4, and then you can just talk about 5, and we can move on since we have the same. Number 4, we both have Shaquille Leonard. I know that he's coming off of that back surgery, and that can be a little scary, especially for a position like linebacker where you have to, kind of be a missile with your body, and that can be dangerous, as we see with back injuries with people like Ryan Shazier. Makes me a little nervous, but I still think he's just overall just a freak athlete. He reminds me a lot of. He's just really, really athletic. He makes those interception plays, and he's pretty good at run defense. But overall, I just think he's just a really, really good linebacker. I don't think he's ever going to get to the point where Fred Warner's at or where Micah Parsons is at, but he's definitely going to be here to stay, and he's definitely going to be one of the best linebackers in football for the years to come.
Well, I think I'm gonna add just Gill now because I think he's in that tier with the top two. I have him at 4 because he's missing some games, so that's why Alec Kendricks kind of passed him for the season rankings. But Leonard, just think about this: 4 interceptions last year. Guess how many forced fumbles?
I would say around 5, 6.
8.
Jeez.
12 turnovers. Well, stuff to recover the fumble, but 8 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions. Just the playmaking ability alone is what gets him on this list because, well, he is a good coverage player. I don't think it's the consistency of a guy like Fred Warner or nearly to that level. I don't think he's the athlete that some of the guys on this list are, like Roquan Smith and Micah Parsons. Do like his run defense a lot, but Shaquille Leonard, very good player. Number 5, Roquan Smith, a guy who I think is a very good player too. I think he's an all-around player, a good athlete, just does his job really. Good at coverage, can stop the run. I think he's one of the best run stoppers in the league. His run stop numbers last year, he led the league in run stops. It's a PFF stat. But very good stopping the run, coverage, and not the Darius Leonard level of playmaking, but definitely a very good playmaker too. So I think he's just an all-around consistent good player and can blitz a little bit. He could be traded. That's why we got a question mark next to him. But I think we can move on to the next position unless you got anything to add.
Nah, I think you pretty much hit Roquan Smith right on the head. I agree with everything you said.
On to the cornerbacks. We're literally almost identical.
Yep.
Do you want to start us off with Jalen Ramsey?
We could literally just go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could just talk about our 5. We have the same 5 guys, a little bit in a different order. Our top 2 guys are the same, but I'll start off with Jalen Ramsey. Aaron Donald, there's nothing really to say. I think there's no competition. I think you think there's a little bit of competition for the best cornerback in football, but I don't think there's a competition.
Are you reading my mind or something?
I know that you're very high on Jazeer Alexander and Denzel Ward. But anyways, we're talking about Jalen Ramsey right now. Jalen Ramsey's so good, bro. It's funny. He may not be the best one-on-one, man-on-man cornerback in football. He doesn't have the breakaway crazy 4.25 speed, 4.3 speed. But he's so an elite man-to-man corner. His instincts are really good. His ball hawking skills are really, really, really good. He's either the best at what he does, or he is a top 5 at the best at what he does, and that's why I have him at 1 because Jalen Ramsey. He's also he's good at getting in the wide receiver's head. He's good at trash talking. When you put him on an island against an elite receiver, that dog in him comes out, and he just wants to beat up on that guy. And I think that's why he's number 1 because he's just your number 1 corner.
Something to Ramsey. Yeah. I'll add something to Ramsey. Cornerback, it's a very hard position to play, and it's probably even harder to stay consistent at.
Yeah.
And you look at most guys, it's changing year to year, the list. Ramsey's always up there, though. He's that one guy who's usually always top 5 corner most seasons in his career, and very impressive for Ramsey. But moving on to Jair Alexander, I think he's a lot similar to Ramsey. So I think they're really close, kind of like you said. Well, you said I thought, which I don't know how you knew that, but I think they're close. I was confident in Ramsey being 1, but Alexander could make a run for his money. So we'll quickly go through the next set of guys. Denzel Ward, I have at 3, you have at 5. Denzel Ward, I think, is one of the best man coverage corners in football. I think his speed, his playmaking ability stands out. Just got to really stay healthy and continue to evolve, and I think he's going to be in that top 3 conversation this year. I think he was already top 4, 5, 6 last year. I think he's just going to continue to grow as a player, and I like him a lot. So I got him at 3. You have him at 5, so I'm sure you like him a lot. Anything negative
Yep.
about him, or you just really like other 2 guys more
I
than Ward?
I honestly think 3 through 5 are all interchangeable to me. They're kind of like a three-way tie. I just put Denzel Ward down there at 5 because I think his height disadvantage is a kind of crucial sometimes because we have times where he gets mossed. He has the speed, the catch-up speed to get it, and he has the hops to make it up. But he doesn't get there quite enough, and he kind of gets mossed on by taller wide receivers. But I love Denzel Ward. I loved him coming out of college. He's just an athlete. He's really good. But moving on to my number 3 and your number 4, my main man Marshawn Lattimore. And it's funny to think back, and we went back about a year ago. I don't think he's on your top 10. But I think I've always had him in my top 5 these past
I
couple
think I had
years.
Lattimore at 13 or 14 a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. Marshawn Lattimore, if you go look at, I think you have the stats on your PFF, but if you go look at it, he's probably, if not one of probably the most like island cornerback in football. The Saints
I'll
just
pull up
kind of throw him
stats.
out there, and he's just stuck over there. Like the amount of times he's up against with other teams' number 1 receivers is kind of sad. Don't give him any help. The greatest example was against the Bills this past year, where he had Stephon Diggs locked up until they got to the goal line, and Stephon Diggs being running a football. If you watched our offensive one from last week, you watched the best route running wide receiver in football. Marshawn Lattimore did get cooked. There was also that play with DK Metcalf where there may have been offensive interference, but that's besides the point, where he kind of got cooked on by DK Metcalf. He locked him up. Marshawn Lattimore is the definition of an overhated, underrated player because for me, I watch him every week. I know how he is insanely good. He gets in your face. He plays with the hands, and he plays right at that limit between pass interference and and he knows the limit, and he doesn't ever really go over the limit, which is also huge for a cornerback.
Yeah, Lattimore, I like what you said about him. A guy who I think I may be underrated because at first I would just see the Lattimore getting cooked plays, and then I would kind of not realize that there's context to those, and he was playing a lot of man coverage more than almost anybody in the NFL. So that's really a hard job for a corner to do, and he's been good at it. So I got Marshawn Lattimore at 4. I don't think he's top 5 right now. I think he's probably in the 7 to 8 range. So I think with the sense of talent this year, he's going to have a very good season. His best season since his rookie season. But shaking your head, what? Do you think he should be top 5 right now?
It's crazy. He's really good. Yeah, I think he's top 5 right now.
Yeah, I think he's just outside the top 5 right now. But I think with that talent, he's going to have a very good deal. Next, we got Tre'Davious White, guy who was top 2 corner, in my opinion, like 2-3 years ago. But ever since then, been dealing with maybe injuries, hasn't been as good. But I think he's got a lot of talent around him. Obviously, very good zone coverage with Sean McDermott. Good playmaker as well. And I think he's just a very good corner who really, since he's kind of hasn't been maybe this quite level the last couple of years dealing with injuries, he hasn't been talked about as much. But I think he's going to have a sneaky, very good deal, and we both kind of feel that way.
Yep.
So
I love
Tre'Davious White?
Yeah, I'll add one thing about him. I love Tre'Davious White. I'm glad that he's getting healthy again after it was an ACL tear last year, right?
Yeah, he tore his ACL.
It was against the Saints. I remember watching it. It looked bad. It was bad. But Tre'Davious White, him and Ramsey have this like knack where they just like to hit people. They're the 2 hardest hitting cornerbacks in football, and I love when they hit because cornerbacks are usually known as like people who just wrap up tackle or scared to hit. Tre'Davious White don't care. He'll fly around since he plays a lot of zone coverage. Say with Jalen Ramsey, these zone cornerbacks guys, they'll just fly around and hit people, and I love that about Tre'Davious White.
Okay, I'm laughing because that's literally, I think, the exact opposite. That's my only knock on Tre'Davious White is he's not physical enough for me, and he doesn't go in and hit people as hard. So maybe we just think 2 different completely things.
Yeah, I like how he hits. He hits pretty hard, man.
I think Ramsey, Alexander, Lattimore. I think Ramsey, Alexander, Lattimore are the really hard cornerback hitters. In my opinion.
Yes, I agree with that. I would put Tre'Davious White in there as well. I would put Denzel Ward in the conversation. But yeah, moving on. I think we already got all 5 of them. Wow.
Now on to the safeties. we agreed, number one, Derwin James, just the versatility, ability to play in the free safety spot, the box safety spot. Very good. Very athletic player. Can cover, can stop the run, can blitz, and he's got playmaking. He's got it all. 2 years off the injury, it wouldn't shock me if he's in that conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. Might be sound like a stretch for his safety, but I just feel that high on Derwin James, and I think I'm very certain that he's going to be the number one safety this year. Maybe could be wrong, but I really like him for this year, especially.
I love Derwin James. I don't really say anything about him, but yeah, we can talk about Antoine Winfield. You have him at number 2.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised he didn't have him on his list. He was another one of those guys who very good statistically last year in all the aspects for his safety, like advanced statistic wise, like PFF grade, like coverage stats. And he's a guy who can kind of play two roles. He was been more of a free safety with the Bucks, but he can also play that strong safety role too. I think he's going to have a very good season and very good as a coverage safety, and has the versatility to be a good coverage safety and also be a good hitting safety. I really like the versatility in his game. And he's another one of those guys that I think made the Pro Bowl last year, but I'm unsure. Let me check.
He did, I think. I don't think he played,
he had to have made
though.
the Pro Bowl. He made the Pro Bowl. But
Yeah,
he's another
I don't
guy
think
who
he played,
can
though.
another guy who can play make 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. I just really like the completeness to his game.
Yep.
I wouldn't say he's number 2 right now. I think he's more in the 5-7 range.
Yep.
So I think this is kind of a breakout. But it's his 3rd season. He's been on my top 100 NFL players at the end of the season for his first 2 seasons in the NFL. Been like in the back half of it, but I think this year he's going to have his true breakout where he becomes an all-pro type player this year. So I got Antoine Winfield at 2. Moving on to your number 2, Budda Baker, guy who I've always liked a lot too. I just really didn't have him on the list this year. I had him being 1 last year. My projections, I don't think he was 1 last year, but a guy who we can agree is one of the most fun players to watch, with his ability to be a missile on the field, come out of anywhere, come across the field, cover so much range, and lay a nasty hit on you. So very fun player to watch. Grown as a playmaker throughout his career. I'm like commentating for your own guy just because I love Budda Baker. But maybe not the best coverage safety, but very good, athletic, hard-hitting safety who can also really grown as a playmaker. And he means a lot to that Cardinals defense. So
yes,
you can talk about the guy you had at number 2 now.
I don't really need to say much. You said all about it for me. He reminds me of as well. Just a guy who can go across the field and just cover any sort of like range you need. He's just super athletic. He hits hard. Safeties, you need to have safeties who will lay the hammer down now. Free safety, like Budda Baker is more of a strong safety type of guy. The box, he can play anywhere. He can even play free safety if he wanted to. He's definitely worked on his playmaking skills. But Budda Baker, I think he's awesome. He's fun to watch. He's a good guy. He's super athletic. He's still pretty young. And I think he's going to be really with a somewhat struggling Cardinals defense. But, yeah.
I just think Derwin James and Antoine Winfield are a little bit better in coverage than him, and I think they both have that ability to play both safety spots and can hit hard and can make plays. So I really just think the coverage is what separates my top 2 from Budda Baker. But now we can get into guys. You have another one of these versatile safeties at number 3, but I'm going to talk about... Actually, you can talk about Tyrann Mathieu because then we can both talk about Simmons since he's after Mathieu on your list.
Yep. I'm going to quickly I'm not going to talk much about Tyrann Mathieu. I love Tyrann Mathieu. I loved him out of college. Super athletic. He's up there in age. He's probably going to regress a little bit this year. If it was last year or 1, but now since he's with the Saints, he doesn't have to necessarily be that guy anymore because there is already 3 of that guy people on that team. Don't forget about our new free safety Marcus May to be able to help over the top of this super fast athleticism. I'm really high on Marcus May. I don't think you are, but I like him as a player. He's really good. Tyrann Mathieu.
Another one of your just assumptions. Marcus May, I think, is arguably the best safety on that team. I think they're both very good. I like Marcus May a lot. I think you have 2 top 10, 12, 15 safeties. I just think Tyrann Mathieu really regressed last year. I don't think Tyrann Mathieu is as good as he used to be, but still a very good leader. Can play in multiple safety spots. Would it shock me if he had a top 3 season? No, but I just don't think he's as good as a player as he used to be. And I've noticed he can kind of get bullied a little bit in the coverage game sometimes. Maybe just because he's not the biggest guy, but still a very good player. But moving on to number 3 and 4, well, my 3, your 4, Justin Simmons. I think the best true coverage safety in the NFL and an elite playmaker. I believe he had 5 interceptions or something like that last year. The defense on the Broncos is going to be good, and I think Justin Simmons is going to be a very good player this year. Wouldn't shock me if he made first team All-Pro and was one of the top 2 guys, but I like Justin Simmons a lot. And he can stop the run, too. It's not to the level of the 2 guys I have above him, but just all around a very good player in Justin Simmons at safety. He's like the natural safety you want for 2022 now, and I like him a lot.
Yep. I completely agree. Nothing really else to say. I think I'll quickly just add that I think Justin Simmons, Kevin Byard, Harrison Smith, and Tron add Jesse Bates in there as well. I think those guys are very interchangeable for 4 and 5. Those guys can go anywhere from 8 to 4. And just named off. But I love Justin Simmons. I think I have him at 4 just because he's just naturally just the free safety you want on a football team, like you said.
I think Kevin Byard has been a very good safety for a long time now, so I have him at number 4. I think you can make Casey's top safety in football going into the season, but I think that the 3 other guys are going to have very good years, so I think Kevin Byard, really, my top 4 could all really go for number 1, wouldn't shock me. But Kevin Byard, all-around safety, another guy who can play in both spots, more of a free safety, though, very good in coverage, is also physical and able to stop the run. One of the best playmaking safeties, too, with getting interceptions in all of football. So I just like Kevin Byard a lot. And it's like 4 seems low, but I just really like a lot of the safeties in the NFL. So it wouldn't shock me if he was 1. I think he was 1 probably last year, but this year he could be 1, but I have him at 4.
Yeah, I love Kevin Byard. I pretty much will agree with everything you just said. I don't really need to talk about that. But you're number 5, Harrison Smith. Talk about Harrison Smith and why you have him on the list.
Harrison Smith, I think he's been just so good for the portion of his career. I think he's a guy who should really be known as a Hall of Famer when he retires. I don't know if he's going to get that respect. That's funny. We should have a Is This Player
Hall of Fame or not
podcast one time.
Ooh.
That would be a fun one.
Yeah.
We can put that on the calendar, but anyway, that'd probably have to be like in the off season because we're ramping up for the season. But anyway, Harrison Smith, he's only had 1 first team All-Pro, but he has made 6 Pro Bowls. Yep. I think he should have more than 1 first team All-Pro because I think there was a couple of years he was the best safety in football and didn't get it. But anyway, Harrison Smith, very good all-around player, instincts, very good, can play both safety spots, strong and free. He's more of a strong safety at this point because he probably has lost a little bit of his speed, which his range as a free safety due to his age. But all-around safety, can hit really hard, can make tackles, doesn't miss tackles is what stands out with Harrison Smith. Very good tackler, but obviously every safety misses tackles, but not to the extent of some others. Very good with the tackles at wrapping up. And he can cover, and he's always been a good playmaker throughout his career, which has really stood out. He has 3 seasons with 5 interceptions, so that's good. And he has
a lot of forced fumbles, too.
And he has a lot of 3-pick seasons, too. So I think he's still going to be good this year, and they have a good defense. But we can talk about some honorable mentions. Jordan Poyer, I think, was top 2-3 last year. That guy was amazing last year for Buffalo. It's just a small sample size of him being that good. He has been in the league while, just hasn't kind of hit last year's heights other than last year. I'm going to double-check something. I don't think he made a Pro Bowl before last year. He's been in the league since 2013. He never made the Pro Bowl, and he didn't even make it last year, but he made first-team All-Pro. That just shows that. I don't know why fans didn't vote into the Pro Bowl. But anyway, he just missed. Jesse Bates looks like he's going to suit up for the Bengals, but you never know the contract situation. He's one of the best true free safeties in football. He just missed for me. Minkah Fitzpatrick wasn't quite as good last year as past years, but still very good free safety. Could always be a top 5 guy. So there's lots of good safeties. Any names you want to add before we move on to kickers?
No, you didn't have you didn't have Tyrann Mathieu or Budda Baker, so I guess you can throw those in there as well.
Oh yeah, those just missed too.
Yeah,
Budda Baker just missed. Tyrann Mathieu a little bit lower on my list than you, probably around the 10 range. But anyway, this segment was pretty much just so funny because I was literally just sitting here talking all about the safeties, and then it'd be like, you cover the safeties.
Yeah, but
I'm
now we're
the
getting.
NFL. I'm the NFL TalkZone safety analyst, by the way.
Oh my gosh,
Safety, my favorite defensive position to watch or
we're
to
getting
like
we're getting
evaluate.
to my favorite part. The
Not
kickers. Go to the
okay.
kickers.
Wait, let me
I
finish
have to
safeties.
put on my.
Safeties, I said it's my favorite defensive position to watch, but I just realized you can't see it on the screen during the broadcast most of the time. So I mean, like, go back and watch the all 22 footage of and evaluate. I just love watching safeties. But anyway, on to the good stuff. The kickers.
Graham has a
stop
special
hyping
hat
up
for the kickers. My boy Justin
Okay.
Tucker. Justin
Okay.
Tucker. The best kicker of all time. Justin Tucker.
Just okay. We can say a couple things about how good Justin Tucker is, without even naming any of his stats. I remember it was like year 8 in his career versus New Orleans. It was like breaking news that Justin Tucker missed a game-tying extra point. Like, first missed extra point. History of his career, like year 7, 8, or whatever. Maybe year 6, something like that. Well into his career. It was like, wow, first missed extra point. That was breaking news. But Justin Tucker, what can you say?
Game too. We won the game because of that. I remember he was in Baltimore. Crazy game.
Justin Tucker, he hasn't missed a
yeah.
fourth quarter field goal in like, I don't know, 6, 7 years or something. I don't think he's ever missed a game-winning kick. He had fourth quarter field goal, like 6, 7 years. Like, what? Never missed a game-winning kick. I don't think he's missed a game-winning kick. Most accurate kicker in NFL history. Now has the longest field goal. Hit a 66-yarder last year. Is he the Aaron Donald of kickers?
He is. No. He's the Tom Brady of kickers. He is the
Justin
best
Tucker. I think last year, his All-Pro season, setting the record, just how consistent. Sorry, I wasn't just realizing how many records he has. Kind of made me have Justin Tucker pass up Adam Vinatieri. It's just weird because Justin Tucker's a way better kicker I don't know if I can say way better, but I feel like it's definitely a step ahead of Vinatieri, but Vinatieri just has the clutchness, which always puts him in the all-time kicker conversation. Yeah. But that's for another day. But anyway, moving on to the next guy. I have Evan McPherson at number 2, just because his range. He hit so many long field goals last year. I'm going to pull up the kicker stats, the good stats.
And he's a baller, bro.
In the playoffs, he was very clutch, calling his own shots in the playoffs, and then, like, the funny part was he called his own shot in the playoffs, and then he went on a ton of shows this week, and it was like, let's see what happens if he gets in this situation again. He got in this situation, game-winning field goal versus the Chiefs in the championship game after the Titans won, and he made it. So, very clutch, very impressive rookie season. I don't think it's going to be a fluke. I think he's only going to grow off it and be in this really top 2-3 conversation this year. And for 50-plus yard field goals in the 2021 regular season and playoffs included, the most was Evan McPherson with 12. Second was 8, Chris Boswell. That was makes. So that's impressive. But anyway, do you want to talk about McPherson before we talk about Graham Gano?
Nah, you said just about everything. I think he's going to be really good this year. I think he's going to be good for the years to come.
Graham Gano is my number 6.
I love McPherson's swagger, man. I saw this. Did you see this article interview with him saying that he wishes that kickers should have walk-up songs, kind of like how pitchers and relievers have it? So for kickers, they would get like a walk-up song,
kicker like walk-up song,
like Edwin Diaz with his trumpet song, but like Evan McPherson with a song. Like I could see that. That would be cool. But yeah, moving on to my number 2, Graham Gano, in there because he's been there for so long. He's just really good, and people kind of forget about how like consistent he is. There's not really much to go in about Graham Gano.
I think it's weird. Graham Gano's actually got better as he's gotten older. Like, and he seems to just keep getting better every year he ages. So see how he ages.
Yep. But you want to talk about
Graham Gano a lot.
Yeah.
Daniel Carlson. You have him 4. I have him 3. We agree. Daniel Carlson's very good. Not much to say, really. Just what stands out is his clutchness. There's overtime, end of regulation, game-winning kicks. And I really like Daniel Carlson a lot.
LA Chargers.
Guy who's really grown on me the last couple of years. But 3, you got Will Lutz. If this was 2017, I'm all for it. Will Lutz could be 1 or 2 maybe behind Justin Tucker. But Will Lutz at 3 seems way too high for me considering how he's performed the last couple of years. I have Will Lutz at like 15th. And no, I'm not posting my full kicker rankings. But I got Will Lutz. I got Will Lutz at like 15th. You got him at 3. Other than you're a New Orleans Saints fan, explain why Will Lutz is at 3.
If he didn't get injured last year, he would have a great season. Do people not forget about his like 58-yard game-winning field goal against the Texans week 1 a couple years ago? That was crazy, man.
Oh, I remember that field goal.
That was
okay.
He
Okay, that was a good field goal.
Yeah, like he's a great kicker. People just kind of like Graham, people kind of just don't talk about him and don't really remember him. He's just really good, man. I don't remember the last time he's missed a field goal, like an extra point field goal.
But we've covered all your kickers. We can just quickly go through.
Yep.
Young Wei Koo very stands out with his ability to be just consistent. Just be consistent. Oh, the onside kicks too. This is New Orleans specifically.
Okay.
Good. Very good kicker. Very consistent. I like him a lot. Then Harrison Butker of the Chiefs, been consistent and good for the last 5-6 years. Just very clutch. We saw it in the playoffs last year. Yep. I like Harrison Butker. I'm surprised you didn't have him on your list. So why don't you have Young Wei Koo or Harrison Butker on your list?
I don't like Young Wei Koo. I don't like him at all. I don't like him as a person. I don't like him as a kicker. I don't like him as a Falcon. I don't care. I don't like the Falcons.
What do Young Wei Koo do as a person?
Take 3 onside kicks and recover all 3 of them. I mean, that's kind of annoying. I get personal when we talk him. But Harrison Butker, he's my number 6. That just
seems like bias.
That is bias. He's my number 6.
Okay, well, on that note, that'll be the end of this podcast. That's not the angle we wanted. But there we go. What?
Hold up. Gotta hat on. Gotta end it with the hat.
But anyway, that's this podcast. Next week, we're undecided. Graham, we can say on live, what do you want to do for next week? Do you want to do the top 25 quarterbacks all time?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Top 25 all time.
So you'll likely see us next week. If there's some reason, may not, I don't know. But we're likely going to be on next week. And if we are on, it'll be the top 25 QBs all time. It's going to be like a draft. I pick 1, he picks 1. But anyway, that'll be next week. So thank you for watching this episode. Future videos, I'm still working on recording the offensive rankings. That's going to be out within the next couple of days. Graham, you can quickly say something.
George Pickens. A couple weeks ago we talked about.
Just George Pickens came out of it.
Yeah, I know about it. You saw the video, right? Of him blocking
what video?
The defender, and he just shoves him to the ground. And
he just shoved the guy?
Yeah, and he waves at him. I'm telling you, remember my bold predictions. I said that Pickens was going to win Rookie of the Year. He proved that week 1 of preseason that he's going to be a baller, man. I love myself some George Pickens.
I'm just not buying into the preseason. Preseason's just so hard to change my mind, but maybe preseason can change my mind on some things. But anyway, look out for the offensive rankings, but there's a lot of graphics that went into that. Yep. It's going to be a long video, like probably almost as long as this podcast. Didn't want to make it that long, but whenever I do the defensive ones, I'm going to make it much shorter. But the offensive ones are going to be long. That'll just be me and that. Other stuff that's coming up, we're planning on doing some college football content, like our predictions for the top 4 teams, playoff teams. That'll be me and Graham in that video. Yep. Probably a video. I don't think it's going to be a podcast, but we'll see on that one. And other than
maybe in the future videos.
Just Graham videos. Future. But anyway, that'll be that. This is the end of the podcast. And have a good